Heavenly Sword. Heavenly Sword, of course, is an adaptation of a video game property. And this movie is actually an animated film. And it actually is in the style of a kind of cutscene from the kind of said video game, or from video games in general. Now, if you're familiar with the game, you're going to be pretty much familiar with this movie. But in case you're not, it follows the story of Noriko, who's kind of this red-headed female warrior, and this kind of is part of this sort of clan of warriors that are here to protect this kind of particular sword which was once used by a kind of heavenly being to defeat evil. And of course this kind of evil tyrannical king wants a sort of sword for himself and is going to come claim to get it. And basically we kind of, the story sort of follows Noriko in a sort of quest to kind of obviously trying to sort of stop him, as well as potentially uncovering clues about her family and potential siblings. So it's a fairly sort of predictable plot, which is not all that sort of complicated. So what's the film like? To be honest, I actually found this film a bit of a chore to sit through. I'm sure it's going to have its fans, but let me just tell you why I say that. Let's talk about the actual technical sort of side of it as well. Like I mentioned, this actually looks like it's from a kind of video game cutscene. So I don't think the kind of the art style and the animation really sort of lends itself to a kind of full-length movie, I have to say. I will say this. I did think some of the sort of the backgrounds and the kind of the art in regards to stuff like that was very good, but the sort of character designs were kind of relatively sort of simplistic, like you would expect, probably from a last generation video game. The other thing I had, the animation is quite unrealistic here. Now, it's, you know, this is not a kind of big budget Disney movie or anything like that. But I have to say that kind of the physics and just the general sort of the way the kind of characters moves were kind of almost lifeless, and sometimes they kind of felt like they were kind of had no weight to them, and they just, I don't know, the animation just wasn't up to par for me, to be honest, and kind of just made it, again, you just couldn't kind of really buy into it, couldn't get sort of suckered into it. The acting as well, the main character Noriko is actually voiced by Torv, who you may know from The Fringe, and she's not a bad actress in The Fringe, but I've got to say she's kind of, it sounded like she was kind of going through the motions a little bit here. And she's kind of got this sidekick, because I won't kind of go into too much the details of, who sounds like Gollum, to be honest. So, a strange choice. To be honest, there is quite a lot of action here that, you know, it's not a, you're not sort of sitting around for loads of period of time without sort of not watching a thing, but it just tends to be, you know, a kind of very thin plot, kind of going from one sort of fight scene to the other, and I don't feel like the characters were all that fleshed up. They all kind of felt very sort of cliche, and they're kind of fitting in sort of particular boxes, like Noriko's, you know, she's this hard-ass warrior basically, and her sort of cohort is just kind of like the cute, looky one, stuff like that. You know, the bad guy is suitably kind of like, you know, he's a sort of grimacing, typical sort of stereotypical bad guy, the stern father, all of that sort of stuff. They're all here basically, all the sort of stereotypes that you'd expect you would see here. So in a way, it kind of almost feels like it should be aimed at a lot younger audience, because I don't think there's enough here really for maybe adults to kind of really sort of sink their teeth into. But the problem is, of course, is it's actually a relatively violent sort of film. It's not a particularly gory animated movie, but nevertheless there is a fair amount of violence in this, so it's kind of in this weird area where I don't think it's developed enough to be all that interesting for adults, but maybe a little bit too violent for kind of young kids. But that's going to be down to your own discretion, I suppose. Overall, I have to say I was kind of a little bit bored with this movie, and I have to say it's a little bit of a missed opportunity. Maybe this would have been better as a kind of a live action kind of big movie or something along the lines of that. Anyway, I'm going to give this movie a 4 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I will look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.